I am really feeling off my game today. I've tried to start this video a few times, because your boy doesn't like to edit. But I think I finally got it, so here we go. I'm going to be reviewing Jim C. Hines' Goblin Quest, which is the first book in a trilogy called Jig the Goblin. It is Goblin Quest, Goblin Hero, and Goblin War. And it is a great trilogy. The first book is the best among them. The third is probably the second best, with the one in the middle kind of falling short, but still has a lot of good qualities and does introduce one of my favorite characters in the series. But I'll talk about that when I review that book after I read it again. Goblin Quest is about Jig the Goblin, who is living in a warren in a mountain with a bunch of other goblins, and he's the runt of the litter because main character. So these adventurers come in searching for the Rod of Creation. Now what you need to know about this mountain is it's magic. It was made by a wizard with a item called the Rod of Creation. So it's made out of like mahogany, obsidian. There's a lot of magical areas in there. The main races that live in there are the goblins, and then you have the hobgoblins, the ogres, and a lot of carrion worms and other, monstrous non-sentient creatures. So Jig is abducted by 4 adventurers. There is the human knight Barius, the human wizard Riceland, the dwarven cleric Duroc, and the elven rogue Rihanna. And they're all pretty cool. Well, they're not cool. I mean, they're good characters. But obviously, the humans are the antagonists, with the dwarf and the elf playing both protagonist and antagonist roles, depending on the situation. Duroc is very loyal to the wizard and the knight. And Rihanna is, the least noble of the group, with exception of Jig. She was kind of forced along like Jig was forced along. So they do bond over that, which is really cool. And at the end of the book, the dwarf has respect for Jig, but they can't be friends. And then you have the elf and Jig being very close at the end of the book, though they do have to go their separate ways. It's a really fun story, and there's a lot of interesting things that happen. The character development for Jig is actually really good. He doesn't completely change in such a short period of time, but he does find a little more faith in himself and a little more faith somewhere else. Spoilers. The development for Rihanna the elf is really good as well. You did get a lot of her backstory, which is fairly interesting. She was an elf raised by humans, so she never really fit in, and that's kind of neat. It is kind of a trope. You've seen it plenty of times in other works, but it's still neat that it's done in a way where she's made out to be an outcast. She's made out to not fit in. Instead of being above them, she does feel like she's below humans. So it's really cool how it's worked out. Duroc does have a little bit of development, because by the end of the story, I won't spoil it, but he does have internal conflict on how he should proceed after certain events happen. In the story, what can I say without really spoiling it? It's definitely a great book, and you do get to meet a god who is willing to be worshipped by a goblin, which is kind of fun. Later on in the series, the relationship between Jig and this god, which does not appear till the end of the book, but I think it's maybe spoiler on the back. Or there's a lot of hints in it. It's not really a spoiler. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but whatever. It's great. It's super funny. Jim C. Hines is one of my favorite authors. I will be doing a lot more books on him, but this one's very traditional. It's a very traditional dungeon crawl. There's not a whole bunch about the plot that you can talk about without spoiling it, but the character development's done really well. The jokes are really on par, and you hate the humans so much. So much. You want them to die from the very beginning. And from the very beginning, you get a good grasp of these characters' personalities. Like, you understand Duroc and you understand Rihanna, and you just hate Barrios and Riceland. You hate them. They're so awful. And there's a lot of goblins you hate too. But it's a lot of fun, and that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. You have a great day. Bye.